stuff Travis in the achievatron machine.
Get in there.
Get in there. Stay down. Stay down.
Okay, you can come out now, Travis. Hopefully we got your attention, PFP family. There is a pandemic going on, and the pandemic is not the coronavirus. The pandemic is we've got a society of coaches and parents and just a society in general of people that are trying to stuff our kids inside the achievatron machine, and you might be knowingly doing it, but there's a good chance if you're watching this, you're probably unknowingly trying to put your kid inside the achievatron machine because the gravitational pulls of society are so strong, and it's so hard not to do what everyone else is doing. It's so hard not to compare yourself to others, and therefore your kid ends up being trapped inside the achievatron machine. So we just want to do one thing today on this Facebook Live. We want to hopefully help you identify what it is you're currently doing that is in alignment with the achievatron machine, like how you're putting your kid inside of it, what you could do to get them out of it and still achieve massive success and achieve massive results, because we're all about that, but we're also about doing it in a sustainable way that leaves your kid feeling passionate and joy-filled rather than resenting the very people and things like sports that got them there.
Yeah, and the reality is right now more than ever, we're seeing these athletes burn out and drop their sports at a faster clip, and this is one of those major benefactors that is causing that. And again, it's not that we're saying go and set the big goals and go after certain accolades if that is the intrinsic goal of the athlete, but it becomes a problem when it's getting pushed onto the athlete coming from the external forces and not inside them.
So what are some things inside of PFP? Because we see 225 kids on a weekly basis, maybe more sometimes. What is it that you're seeing as a result of this? What are some of the things you see in the kids that come into PFP?
It's happening across all different ages, but I'm seeing it earlier in the middle school ages when the athletes first start the club scene, and it stunts their development. And I'm seeing athletes that get stressed out, they don't want to do it anymore because they might be chasing a certain team, and when they miss that team, it sinks them. Or they get on that team and they don't get the accolades that they want. Their parents are pushing these accolades to compare to other athletes on the team. So I'm definitely seeing it early on with some of the younger athletes, but it's definitely pertaining to that club scene. And the reality is no coach, no recruiter is going to catch your kid in 7th grade at a showcase. So we just got to take a step back.
So how does the idea of process versus outcome play into this? And how are you, I feel like I'm interviewing you right now, how are you helping kids to maybe be more about the process and less about whatever the achievement is, whatever the outcome is? How are you doing that right now?
So last week we actually structured it. We sat down with all the athletes. We had them write down what goal do you want to achieve. And I knew for some of the higher athletes, I did push some accolades that I knew they wanted to go, but they might have been afraid to say. But from there, it's having weekly measures that we can track to make sure we're attacking it the right way. Right? If you want to get a certain accolade as an athlete, whether it's a scholarship or make a certain team, we know if you can get bigger, faster, stronger, and your numbers in the gym can improve, and you work on the mindset around it, those metrics are going to set you up for success for that team. Mm-hmm. So we're tracking the process of what's going on in here to get you to there. A lot of times we'll set that goal or we'll have that end destination in mind, and for that 4 weeks we don't really do a whole lot, and then we get there and we're stunted by not making that achievement that we wanted to get.
Mm-hmm. So I'm actually reading a book right now called The 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson, and rule number 5, I think it is, says compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And it's a super simple concept, but I think if I were able to talk to your kid right now about this whole concept, I would be telling them to set strong goals, try to achieve greatness, try to achieve the best version of themselves, but not in comparison to LeBron James, or not in comparison to the top-rated player in the country, because I think that's the standard to which kids now compare themselves, and it's not fair to them, it's not fair to anybody else. Like, what is the standard? You have to define that first, and from what I found, the only real fair standard that's going to result in you feeling empowered and challenged is to compare yourself to who you were yesterday, which again, it comes down to you still have to track it. You still have to have something to compare yourself to. Yesterday I was able to jump a 20-inch vertical. Today I'm able to jump a 21. Yes, LeBron James still jumps a 40, but that's not who I'm comparing myself to. That's what I'm allowing to motivate me. So what's the standard to which you're going to compare yourself to? You got to decide that.
Yes.
And I'll just share one more thing before you chime in. As a parent, what is the standard you're comparing yourself to? Do you have the tendency, and this might be a great wake-up moment, do you have the tendency to, in different areas of your life, whether it's professionally, financially, do you have the tendency to compare yourself to somebody else? Or do you typically try to compare yourself to who you were yesterday? Because if you're doing that, the chances of your kid doing it are so much more likely. I mean, there's such a higher chance of your kid following in your footsteps with that. So it's a good check, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, and you said it last week. Extraordinary people do consistently what average people do on occasion. So the big thing is what you said was spot on. I mean, when we have an athlete come in for their assessment, the reality is with this whole coronavirus thing, a lot of athletes came in weak, deconditioned, because they were sedentary for 3 months, and a lot of them were extremely frustrated. And I told them, don't beat up you, beat up the practice. In the last 3 months, you didn't do anything to see progression. And that allows us to be strategic in the goals we set and compare where we're going from here on to that starting point, not where we were, right? Or not to somebody else in their journey. Because every athlete is different. Everybody's going to bring different gifts to the table.
Yep.
But it's always highlighting that progression from that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think if there were like one main thing to take away from this message, it's not that achievement's bad, it's that it's not the main thing. It's not the ultimate thing. The ultimate thing is getting better than you were yesterday, so don't compare yourself to who you could be, but compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And if we can do that, then I think achievement will happen, because anything, this will be the last thing I say, anything that is worth achieving takes time. If you don't honor the process and find a way to enjoy the journey, then you won't stick with it long enough to achieve anything great. So it's kind of a paradox of, you know, if you want to achieve big things, you actually have to really just focus on like teeny little progressive steps to get there. Otherwise, you're going to get frustrated along the journey. It just won't happen.
And the reality is when you put your self-worth in achievements, that's an extrinsic thing. You can't control when you get first team. It's subjective to somebody else's opinion, but what you can do is put in first team effort. You can put in D1 effort. Whatever your goal is, you can put in that effort into the process and make it as close to becoming a reality as possible, but you can't control it. It's an extrinsic thing.
Yeah.
It's like making a team. It's subjective to others. So control what you can, control the controllables, and always highlight progress over perfection.
It's so funny. We have this athlete, and it's actually this one athlete that comes into PFP represents a whole category of athletes called the high achievers. And it's funny because over the past few years, as this athlete has signed a big scholarship, has become one of the top players in the country, has continued to rise up higher and higher, I've watched this athlete anxiety go up, joy when they walk in. They don't get as excited when they talk about their sport anymore. So it's kind of funny, if you're not careful about how you go about this and you really pay attention to how you're going about achieving, the result of achieving more and more and more could be more and more stress, less and less joy, less and less passion, and you can gain the whole world but lose your passion, lose your soul. What do you really get out of it? So that's part of the battle, I think.
Yeah, especially for you high school athletes out there, come back to why did you start playing sports in the first place?
Bingo.
I mean, right now more than ever, you're playing because you enjoy it, right? And if you ask any athlete that's ever gone on to play college or pro ball, the commonality that I see is the most fun they ever had playing a sport was high school. So soak it up, enjoy it. Sometimes the process is a little bit of a grind, and that's okay, because you're going to like where you end up.
Yeah, embrace the struggle, honor the struggle. Love it. Guys, we'll see you next week. We're talking about something amazing, and I probably won't do this again.
No
Get
more
down
of this.
there. Get down there.
Bye, guys.